Chapter 17, Two Pentacles. Kain stretched his elegant limbs before yawning, and he made his way towards Malick's bedroom. And Ezra was about to comment, but he remembered that the two used to share a bed since they were kids. And it was cute when Kain and Malick were sweet and innocent twins. And now that they were adults, Ezra was imagining that their relationship could have possibly evolved into something else. And Ezra had always suspected that Kain had feelings for Malick. After all, Kain did write Malick a Valentine's letter when he was 12. And Ezra went to the guest room to rest, and he turned off the lights, and after waiting half an hour, he pressed his head against the wall in order to listen. And everything was quiet in his son's bedroom. And he tiptoed into Malick's bedroom, and a sleeping Malick had his hand on Kain's hair, and clearly he had fallen asleep while petting Kain's hair. Malick used to do that whenever Kain had difficulty sleeping, and Ezra smiled. After all this time, their relationship hadn't changed one bit. And he continued to tiptoe his way towards the nightstand, and he took his son's cell phone to see his photos and read his messages. And he saw a selfie that his son had taken with Carina and Kain, and Audrey looked so happy, almost as if everything had gone back to normal. And this was followed by a photograph Malick had taken of a painting that looked like his little sister. And once he got bored of looking at photos, Ezra decided to read the text messages. And he saw his son stir, and Ezra tiptoed out of the bedroom before going to sit in the living room. And from the comfort of the couch, he read his son's most recent text messages. And the last message Malick sent was to a skank he was breaking up with. And the woman had made the mistake of telling Malick that she loved him, so she had to go. Ezra grew sad when he realized that his son hadn't had a serious relationship since breaking up with Carina. If he loved her, why didn't he fight for her? Whispered Ezra. My son is following the example that you set, hissed Roxana, and she stretched her hand before adding, and give me that cell phone if you want to know about my son's life. Talk to him. Malick doesn't talk to me anymore, and he hasn't called me in over a month, and even today he barely spoke more than 2 words with me, said Ezra, closing both hands over Malick's cell phone. Malick no longer sees the point in talking to a man who doesn't believe a single word he says, whispered Roxana. I believe him when he speaks the truth, said Ezra. And what is the truth, Ezra? What is convenient for you to believe, whispered Roxana. Let's not start an argument, said Ezra, scratching his hair nervously. The children are sleeping. Give me my son's cell phone, ordered Roxana. No, said Ezra. He was daring his ex-wife to try to take it from him. Fine, suit yourself. I hope you choke on it, said Roxana, returning to her bedroom. I love you too, said Ezra mockingly. He returned to reading Malick's text messages, and he tested it aloud with Balthazar, and mostly to talk about art. And he eventually read Malick's most recent text message, and he grew genuinely saddened when he read that Malick no longer trusted him anymore. And Ezra had allowed the relationship to deteriorate far too much, and it wasn't as if he wanted to see Malick anymore. He preferred talking over the phone. As long as he didn't see Malick's green eyes, Ezra wasn't reminded of Roxana's infidelity. It was a sunny Wednesday afternoon morning, and Kain awoke extremely refreshed, and it was then when he noticed the time. He had awoken far later than usual, and he sprung from bed to shower and get dressed quickly, and he found his uniform washed and neatly hung inside Malick's closet. And when he arrived to the kitchen, breakfast was already served, and Roxana handed him a lunchbox overstuffed with goodies, and Malick had left for work early to avoid his father. Kain, I need you to take me to work, said Ezra. I am going to speak to Farley, but first we need to drop off my daughter at her school. Kain narrowed his eyes, and he did as he was told. He took Ariel to school, and then he drove directly to work, and this little side trip had officially made him late. And Ezra, noticing the problem, offered unsolicited advice. Turn on the siren, like that you can drive past all of the red lights, said Ezra. I'd rather not use my police sirens over something as petty as arriving late for work, said Kain. We will get there when we get there. Suit yourself, said Ezra. The morning traffic moved without a slug space, and Ezra opened his mouth again to chatter. So, Kain, what type of a man is Farley? He takes his job as a detective very seriously, and his first name is Osman, but everyone just calls him Farley, even his wife Nicole. and she is a prosecutor, and she too takes her job very seriously, and Oswald is their only child, and expect an intense interrogation from the two, said Kain. Yeah, because one's a prosecutor and the other a detective. How long have those two been married? Asked Ezra. 29 years and counting, and are you worried that he's going to judge you for being a divorced father married to a woman 15 years younger than himself? Asked Kain, smiling thinly. Kain, why the hostility? Whatever Malik has told you, he is lying, said Ezra. Even liars sometimes tell the truth, said Kain, and I can always tell when Malik is lying to me. When he lies, his eyes blink more than usual. Is that right? Said Ezra thoughtfully. As a cop, I was trained in advanced interrogation techniques, and by observing a person's posture, eye movement, and mannerism, I can tell the difference between a liar and a person who speaks the truth, said Kain. Can you teach me how to do that? Asked Ezra. It isn't a skill that you can learn overnight, and I'm not a very good teacher or student. I can only read Malik so well because we have spent so much time together. Look, here we are, said Kain, finally arriving to the police station. Both men left the patrol car, and Ezra stayed close to Kain's side. And Kain guided Ezra to Farley's office, and the detective was buried under a mountain of paperwork, and the walls were littered with strings connected to different faces and destinations. Not now, I'm busy, said Farley, not bothering to look up from his work. Kain picked up one of the files, and after examining the wall of evidence, Kain realized that his co-worker was wasting time on a cold case. He said, No, you're not busy. This is Ezra, by the way. He's the father of your son's girlfriend. I am not in the mood for your little jokes, Kain. My son doesn't have a girlfriend, said Farley. Just because his truth has escaped your notice doesn't make it any less factual, said Kain. They have been dating for more than a month, and I will leave you two to talk alone. Kain left Ezra alone with Farley, and he went to his uncle's office to report in. And when he told Uncle Gant why he had been late, the man had a hearty laugh, and he picked up the phone to put out an APB to inform all of his officers of the Farley situation. The detective had been so focused on his work that he didn't notice that his son had a little girlfriend. The officers not on duty crowded around Farley's door to eavesdrop, and Kain and Gant overheard the conversation from their office. Gant had wiretapped and placed hidden cameras in Farley's office so he could see and hear everything that his underling did. Instead of a heated argument, the two men had an hour conversation about their respective children. They felt quite foolish for missing out on such an important landmark in the child's life. And Farley took a moment to call his wife to ask her about Ariel, and she was delighted to inform her husband that she was aware that her son had a little girlfriend, and her boy was not as clever or as sneaky as he thought he was, and she hadn't mentioned it to her husband because she thought he knew. After all, nothing gets past the great Detective Farley. I guess we're the only two people who didn't know, sighed Farley, resting his head on his fist. Children grow up so fast, said Ezra, vibing with Farley. Just the other day, I was teaching my son to drive, said Farley, picking up a photograph he had of Oswald on his desk. And now he has a little girlfriend. Isn't your son a little too young to know how to drive? Asked Ezra. I don't tell you how to raise your daughter, so don't tell me how to raise my son, barked Farley. And besides, knowing how to drive is the same as knowing how to swim. The quicker you learn it, the quicker you learn how to avoid accidents. Ezra opened his mouth to retort, and the two pig-headed men got into a stupid argument about when was the proper age for a child to know how to drive. And with neither side willing to yield, they could have easily yelled at each other for hours. And thankfully, Roxana called Ezra to inform him that she had arranged a double date with her and Nicole acting as chaperones. At least our wives get along, said Farley, laughing. As fun as it is to argue with you, I advise that you keep your well-intentioned stupidity to yourself. Unlike you, I live in the real world, and I have stared into the darkness, and it has stared back. And everything I teach my son is to ensure his survival. And think about that the next time you decide to criticize the way I raised my boy. They agreed to disagree before going their separate ways, and with nothing better to do, Ezra had Kain drive him to Malik's workplace. And Kain was a little curious about the place as well, and he got the address from Eugenia. The business wing of her father's enterprise was in Brickell city center, and from his skyscraper, Michael managed the empire he had inherited from his dead wife. And Malik was an investment manager who dealt with big numbers on a regular basis. And after checking in, they got inside the elevator and Kain pressed the top floor, and this made Ezra feel quite proud. And the last time he visited his son's workstation, it was located in a basement cubicle. Clearly, the young man was moving up in the world. The elevator door opened, and they were bathed in light, and all of the offices had glass doors and walls in order to allow unobstructed view of the Florida skyline. And in the center, overseeing his empire, was Michael's office. And Kain spoke to Michael's secretary, and the woman typed the name Kain Sanson in her computer. And once she had verification that Kain was allowed to come and go as he willed, she directed him to Malik's office. They found Malik surrounded by cameras, and he was in the middle of making a commercial for the company. And Malik was so hyper-focused on his acting that he didn't notice his small audience, and he repeated his lines, and after 5 takes, he was done. And the director ordered a couple of extra takes just to be safe, and with the commercial done, Malik got his photo taken for the newspaper, and his mask dropped for a second when he became aware of his father, and his face contorted into undisguised fury. And the photographer snapped a quick picture. The camera flash reminded Malik that he was still at work, and he took a deep breath before forcing a fake smile. "Welcome to my humble office," said Malik before shaking hands with his visitors. "Have a seat, make yourself comfortable. I am sorry for showing up unannounced, and I was in the area, and I was curious to see your new office," said Ezra. "Well, here's my computer and my chair, and here's the coffee maker. It is identical to my previous office, only the floor changed," said Malik, giving a tour. "As much as I would like to talk, I have work to do." "Do you mind if I wash?" asked Ezra. "No, not at all," said Malik, as his fake smile widened. "My job isn't as exciting as baseball, but it pays the bills, and I must warn you that you're going to be bored very, very quickly." Malik turned on his computer to look at spreadsheets, and from time to time he would type something before doing some calculations. And Ezra stood over his son's shoulder to watch him work. And Kain decided to return to work, and when he stood up, he saw Malik's pleading green eyes. "Please, don't go." They were begging Kain to stay, so he stayed. Ezra remembered how he used to help Malik with his homework, and he went to caress the memory of the child he used to know. And when his father caressed his hair, Malik flinched, and he left his seat before making his way out of the office, and he took refuge in the bathroom, and he heard a knocking outside the door. "Are you alright, son?" asked Ezra, "and do you feel sick? Is it the withdrawal symptoms acting up?" "I am fine, I just need to use a can," lied Malik. And he added as 2 tears fell from his green eyes. "Please, Dad, just leave me alone. Let me have my privacy." Ezra, finally taking the hint, said, "I will leave you alone, son. I am sorry for bothering you while you work." And Ezra made his way back to the office, and he said to Kain, "We should be leaving, and you have work to do, and I have inconvenienced my son enough." Kain left with Ezra, and as soon as they were gone, Malik returned to his workstation, and try as he might, he couldn't concentrate, and he spent the rest of his shift opening and closing windows while he pretended to work. And both drove in silence with no clear destination, and Kain got a text message from Uncle Gant, and he read it while the light was red. "Since you had no intention of returning to work anytime soon, I suggest that you take the rest of the day off," texted Gant. "I am sorry, Uncle, but Ezra asked me to drive him to Malik's work," texted Kain. "The next time he makes such a thoughtless request, remind him that taxes exist and that you work for a living. Reiterate again, me being your boss will not keep you from losing your job. If you neglect your responsibilities, remember that the next time you decide to play hooky." Kain dropped out Ezra at the senior center in order to inconvenience Lorraine for a few hours, and while in the parking lot, Kain tested Malik to see if he was alright. "I am sorry for bringing your father to work, and I should have known better. After work, if you're not doing anything, we should go out, and some time away from your father will do you good," texted Kain. I can't leave the house. I promised my sister that I will help her with her homework, tested Maddie. And if you want to go out, you go out. You go out. Don't let me stop you. If you want to go out, go out. Don't let me stop you. Maddie cried a little more after sending this text message. This wasn't what he really wanted to say. This wasn't really what he wanted to write, but he didn't want to drag Kain down with him. Kain read and reread the text message. Are you sure you don't want me to come? Asked Kain. After 10 minutes of hesitating, Maddie wrote the word yes. Kain accepted Maddie's answer, and he tested Oberon to see if he was awake. And Oberon didn't work on Wednesday, and due to his night job, he was late till the afternoon on Wednesday. And Oberon frowned and looked at his cell phone while he cursed the fact that he had forgotten to leave it on silence. And he smiled when he read Kain's message. Do you want to go out for lunch, or do you want me to bring you something? Asked Kain. Are those my 2 options? Tested Oberon, giggling. I can cook you a meal, tested Kain. Come here and cook for me. I am starving, tested Oberon, and I am too tired to leave the bed. He closed his eyes in order to sleep a little longer, and as he was dozing off, he realized that Kain didn't have a key to his apartment. Kain read the text message, and alarmed he fancied that his friend was either feeling ill or perhaps he had gotten injured in his job. And he bought supplies before driving to Oberon's apartment, and he even used the police siren to skip all of the red lights. Oberon awoke when he felt a heavy hand over his forehead, and he felt a warm body sitting beside him, and he kept his eyes closed to pretend to be asleep, and the hand then fell both his cheek. The warm body departed to the kitchen, and based on the noise, Oberon guessed that Kain was making him lunch. Kain finished putting all of the ingredients, and all that was left was for the pressure cooker to finish making the soup. And Oberon felt a wet cloth being placed over his head, and he wanted to tell Kain that he was alright, but he decided to malinger for attention. Oberon, Oberon, whispered Kain, lightly tapping Oberon's forehead with his hand. Oh, Kain, how did you get inside? Asked Oberon, and this was a legitimate concern. After all, he hadn't given Kain a key to his apartment. Don't worry about it. Here, open your mouth. I made you soup. It is a little hot, but it is tasty, said Kain, offering a spoonful of grub. Oberon sipped the soup, and he said, since eating while lying down was uncomfortable, and he said more seriously, I would really like to know how you got inside. I picked the lock. I would have not, but I didn't want to wake you up, said Kain. Oh, good. For a moment I was afraid that you would have broken the window to get inside, said Oberon, sighing with relief. Kain brought a small table, and he placed it over Oberon's leg, and he brought the soup up before his friend as well as the spoon, and he poured a glass of orange juice, and Oberon proceeded to eat his meal. He wasn't a fan of soup, but the one that Kain had made was perfect, and he always liked everything that Kain cooked. And Kain poured for himself his own bowl, and he returned to the bedroom to eat lunch with his friend, and he smiled warmly seeing how Oberon was eating. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.